Blessed be all of my people out there, and welcome to all of those of you who are just discovering my channel. My name is Nico, Son of Selene, and in this video we are going to be doing a special look over of a very important transit that is getting underway pretty much right now, but will be officially begun on the 11th of January. And that is the North Node moving into Pisces and the South Node moving into Virgo. And what does this mean for everybody? What are the North and South nodes of the moon? And what do we need to know about not only what they represent in our personal charts, but what this also means for global shifts and our own personal stories in the present? Now, that is a lot to talk about in a single video, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretty much try to organize this as best I can. And so in the beginning here, we're going to, of course, get you familiar with the North and South node, so you know what we're talking about. And then we're going to talk about the North and the South node in Pisces and Virgo, what that means on a more global level, what everyone's going through, how it's affecting everybody the same way. And then I'm also going to have chapters at the end of this video talking about how it's affecting each and every sign you might want to look at their own unique way. And also, for those of you who enjoy this video, I'd like to ask you to please like and subscribe, because you might want to see more updates here from me. I actually put out monthly astrological forecasts and weekly astrological and tarot forecasts, so there's always something going on this channel. And if you ever want to get a personal reading with me, you can go on ahead to my website. It's integrativemysticism.com. So what are the North and South nodes of the moon? These are not celestial bodies. These are not stars, they're not planets, they're not asteroids, they're not moons themselves. North and South nodes are basically energy centers, mathematic points that follow the eclipse path. They are connected to the moon. They share in a lot of lunarian energy, but what they are actually sign markers. And what they do is they influence what we could consider tides that go on throughout our entire zodiac and tell us where certain tides are flowing and going and where they are not. I like to look at the North Node as the North Star of the zodiac, of the astrology world. If you're ever feeling lost, if you're ever feeling confused, if you're ever feeling without a sense of direction, going in the direction of, making decisions or maybe taking strategies or taking action in accordance with whatever the North Node is emphasizing will always set you right. The South Node, however, can be where sometimes we might lose ourselves or lose some time. So if we catch ourselves being a little bit too much in that South Node energy, we gotta bring back a sense of moderation. The North Node represents our biggest challenges, but also our biggest rewards and successes, where we are going to be achieving the most in our lives, what we're here to learn, and what will afford us the greatest success, whether it's the greatest success in terms of our personal path, our community standing, our relationships, our career, our families, our living circumstances, anything. The South Node, that's our crutch. That's the place that we go to veg for a while. That's where we go to feel an artificial sense of empowerment or an artificial sense of control and purpose. And a lot of the times the South Node is, it can make us feel that way because it's easy. It's very unchallenging, and it's a place to coast. So again, moderation in all things. It's not saying that the South Node is bad. It's not necessarily bad, but it's an indulgence. It's not meant to be a way of life. And we all have our indulgences. I love a good video game, but at the same time, I can't let it take over. So, you gotta sometimes see what is your South Node. It might not be something as banal as that example. It might be something a little bit more impressionistic or a little bit more broad, but we all have them somewhere. It's just important to keep an eye on it. The North Node moving into Pisces is basically bringing in the power of Pisces, or what Pisces is all about, and turning it on overdrive in a very, very good way. That is because we also have a couple of other very important, very supportive planets during this run of this next 18 months, also helping to stabilize this change. And that is because we also have Neptune in Pisces, and we also have Saturn in Pisces. So Pisces energy is ultimately going to be kind of lord of the next 18 months. And when we have the North Node in Pisces, what Pisces, and by extension Neptune, rule come into full focus for all of us. These are the powers that rule dreams, speciality, creativity, spirituality, healing, peace, harmony, connection, as well as transformation and the passage of cycles and the passage of stories, the passage of life stories and life chapters. When we have the North Node in Pisces, it's actually also very special. We have an opportunity to bring a deeply personal wish or dream into reality. The North Node in Pisces is about dreams coming true and about wishes getting granted, but not the wishes that we are raised to have, not the dreams that we're raised to have, not the wishes and dreams we feel pressured to want, not the wishes and dreams that we maybe are culturally or socially or economically or traditionally influenced to make for ourselves, but the dreams and aspirations that actually come from our true selves, our true hearts, free of all of that conditioning. What is it exactly that our heart, our true wish, our true desire has a chance to come true and be physicalized out of the realm of dreams and imagination? This can be a beautiful thing, but it can also be a very challenging thing because we also have to be able to understand, recall, and also remember, and therefore reconcile with our true wishes, our true dreams, our true aspirations. And this is also a period where a tremendous amount of rectification and healing and transformation is also going to be taking place, especially around fixing things that have maybe been operating either in the wrong capacity or on the wrong roads or in the wrong circumstances, under the wrong conditions, but also see what the solutions are. And so we might be seeing a lot of that happening globally. The South Node going into Virgo presents a very interesting challenge as well, because Virgo energy is textbook associated with a lot of work on repair, organization, analysis, staying grounded, being dutiful, being productive, and prosperous. So how could all of those priorities or all of those situations or all of those things be considered something to watch out for? The South Node, and I'm speaking as a Virgo, by the way, so I don't want any other Virgo out there, throwing a shit fit about what I'm about to say. The South Node always brings out what we could consider to be the ill-dignified expression of what sign it's in is doing, right? So over the course of the South Node being in Libra, for instance, it kind of brought out the most difficult and problem-prone areas around attachments, involvements, and relationships, and where we needed to actually not sink ourselves or let our realities be run according to what we associate with, what we attach to, and what is going on with our relationships, because it was all about, showing where too much attachment focus or too much attachment to this and that will cause problems, especially attachment unchecked. And there are still some people that are not getting the memo on that, even though we're at the end of this transit of the South Node in Libra. With the South Node in Virgo, now there is a warning about being too steadfast in trying to control or trying to maybe maintain or work on things out of a sense of duty, out of a sense of obligation, or out of a sense of pragmatism. Because Virgo can be a very dutiful sign. It can also be a sign that is extremely pragmatic, sometimes to the point of being a little bit ruthless, but at the same time, we can't let it get out of control. And if you find with the South Node in Virgo that you are encountering situations where you might be getting held back in life because some of the things you've got going on only exist because of a sense of obligation, a sense of pragmatism, or a sense of duty, it might actually be working against you, not for you. And there's all kinds of things that we get trapped up in with those kinds of influences. We might stay in the wrong job. We might stay living in the wrong neighborhood. We might continue to try to make the wrong kind of personal connections work. And so this is going to be a time where it's, watch out for that, because we might sometimes give ourselves an artificial sense of security and responsibility and all of that by staying in the wrong arrangements out of an artificial sense of duty, responsibility, and pragmatism. And as long as we can, of course, moderate that and also embrace what the North Node in Pisces is bringing to the table, we're going to have a wonderful 18 months. It just might come with some learning curves, at least in the very beginnings. The most intense part of this transit this year is going to actually come out right in the beginning, with the North Node going into Pisces on the 11th and immediately beginning a 3-month engagement with Neptune, all the way up until early April. And so with that going on, we're going to be kind of getting the rush and the flush of these energies. And again, this massive sensibility shift pretty much right out the gate. And some of us already have noticed that, because over the course of the last couple of weeks, the North Node has been already engaging in the beginnings of its loose conjunction with Neptune. So, kind of getting the party started a little bit earlier than the 11th of January. And it can seem like a lot of information to take on all at once. You might have to come back and watch this video again. But when in doubt, always remember that the North Node, the North Star, in spite of it bringing our biggest challenges, it does also bring our biggest rewards and our biggest successes. And that's also what it's doing in our personal charts. So always remember that, whatever comes up. So let's have a look and see what is going on with each and every individual sign. What is going on with all y'all? All right, Aries, so what does the North and South Node move mean for you? Well, the North Node is going back into your 12th house of the past, private matters, secrets, hidden opportunities, shortcuts, the past less traveled, as well as old business. And whenever we have the North Node in the 12th house, it can be a very opportune time for us to get ahead by paths less taken or less trodden upon. This can be a time where you may notice that you are getting a chance to be set apart from the crowd, whether this has to do with your social endeavors or maybe even in a personal path or professional situation. There could also be a lot of secret favors, secret hookups, and even opportunities to reconnect or reset something that you maybe once upon a time were invested in or trying to make happen in the past. In fact, this could also be a very important 18-month period where a lot of you are getting a chance to reconnect with and even restart or start for the first time very prosperous paths, both, again, in your personal world and even in your professional world, that you did, for whatever reason, maybe leave in the past or had closed up in the past. Just keep in mind, sometimes the North Node in the 12th house can challenge us personally, because we may have to face where we threw out the baby with the bathwater, and we might have to eat some humble pie about that, or at least be ready to adjust accordingly for a very special score that could be coming, again, through a secret, hidden, or past source. For your South Node experience, though, With the South Node going into Virgo, your 6th house of work, your reputation, your schedule, your community standing, and how you organize your world, and even your lifestyle, you're going to need to make sure that you practice moderation and maybe even dial back a little bit when it comes to trying to maybe grow or build what you've been grinding over the course of the last few years. It could be a challenge because, again, with the South Node, we do get a lot of an artificial incentive, a sense of security. But sometimes what happens with the South Node in the 6th house is that we stick to things or stick to plans or stick to agendas or deadlines or timelines or things that we've made for our future just because we did once upon a time. And the South Node in the 6th house is a warning that if we give ourselves tunnel vision and we just focus on the road we've been on this whole time, we could be missing out on some opportune surprises. So make sure that you are not overcommitted to the wrong things, that you are not letting your obligations or your duties control what's going on in your life, and you make sure that you are not directing your discipline and your focus, your personal investments into things just because they're there. It might be time to be ready to open up to new opportunities, things that may not necessarily be so conventional or commonplace with what's around you, and give yourself a fresh start. And what about you, Taurus? What's going on with your North and South Node shift, and what does this mean as far as your next 18 months goes? Well, the North Node going into Pisces has him moving into your 11th house of friendships, community, your support system, as well as adventure. And so over the course of this next 18 months, you may find yourself getting put in a lot of positions to not only get more socially popular, but also build the ideal support system and community around yourself. With the North Node in the 11th house, you are being asked to not only be more welcoming, but also let more people get involved in helping you grow your world. Any kind of benefit, whether it's a relationship benefit, a work benefit, a financial benefit, something that is going to be taking care of you and yours, or something deeply personal, is likely going to be coming through a healthy, strong, and connected social circle. And so it's important to make sure that you are expanding your horizons in order to have that. And again, being welcoming to having more people in your life and more of a roster that is not only very active and engaged, but also one that is very supportive of you. With the North Node in the 11th house, it pushes us to be more visible and to make ourselves more visible, and to also make sure that we are letting people in, especially if maybe we have gotten into a place where perhaps our support system or our friendship circle or our sense of community has been very limited or very, very small. Maybe we're trying to get too much out of too small a setup, and this is a time for boosts, for growth, and for good expansion here. For the South Node being in Virgo, you're going to want to make sure that you pay attention to where, maybe your personal life or creative pursuits, your love life, or maybe even how you are dedicating yourself towards your love life needs to be balanced with a healthy social circle or a healthy support system. It can be very tempting with the South Node in the 5th house to make our lives all about love, or all about relationships, or all about our kids, or all about some kind of creative project or personal business, because there's enough of a reward system in place that we feel like we're kind of doing what we're supposed to do, but we're not getting everything we need. Our romantic partners, our kids, even our creative projects and businesses can't give us what an entire village is needed to provide. And we're not doing ourselves any favors by keeping that circle too small or too tight. And so be careful over the course of this period not to isolate yourself, your personal life, or anything that you've got going on as far as a personal project or personal business is concerned, because you could be missing out. What about you, Gemini? The North and the South Node moving into Pisces and to Virgo are moving into your 10th house of career, upward mobility, status, promotions, and raises, and your 4th house of home, family, living arrangements, and home economy, respectively. With the North Node in your 10th house, this is a beautiful time to be rising up as a bit of a rising star yourself in your field or in any kind of career, business, or professional aspiration that you have, whether it has to do with the job or the work or the field that you have right now, or in something that's a bit more personal, a bit more of, an individual desire or deeper dream, right? Because the North Node in Pisces is really hooking you up there. But with the North Node in your 10th house as well, you may be noticing that you are also gaining a lot more power and influence and authority. And a lot of you could be getting lifted up, not just through your own hard work, but also through important fellows, collaborations, authority figures, and maybe even big ripples that you are able to make around your career, around your field, or your workforce. Sometimes you get lifted up into something brand new, whether this is, you getting lifted up into an ideal dream job or an ideal dream career. This could also indicate promotions, transfers, letting yourself really, immerse yourself into a much more busy, but also, again, prosperous time is what you need to do. However, with the North Node in the 10th house, this could also be a time where you've got to be ready to get more involved or maybe even let your career, your field, or your work become a more prominent presence in your life in order to profit from it. With the South Node in your 4th house, you've got to be careful about being too cloistered or being too closed off in terms of maybe investing or putting too much time, energy, and focus on your home, on your residence, or on your plans for either your family looking towards the future or maybe even family matters going into the past. Now, with the South Node in the 4th house, it can be very tempting to just go all in on your maybe living arrangements, or go all in on focusing on home economy or your roots or family agendas or anything along those lines. But what can often happen is with the South Node in the 4th house is that we also find that sometimes those things take over us. And while we don't want to necessarily give no shits about, the well-being of our family members and the people that we care about, it is important to understand that if you keep yourself in a situation where you are closed off, where you are kind of bound within the walls of your castle, you might not know where you could do better with a different castle, or maybe make a bigger name for yourself or a bigger kingdom. So always something to keep in mind with your with South Node in the 4th house. We want to make sure that we can moderate how much we are putting in there or how attached that we get to maybe, again, home agendas, family agendas, or plans that we've set for the next 18 months. Focus on, again, your kingdom, not your castle. The North Node is the kingdom. The South Node is the castle. Kingdom over castle for the next 18 months. And what about you, Cancer? What about you and all of this North Node and South Node shift? What's going on for you? Well, the North Node going into Pisces is the North Node going into your 9th house of expansion, elevation, growth, big moves, big travel opportunities, publicity, prominence, and even spirituality and academia, as well as anything that is going to boost you in terms of official matters. And the South Node is going into your 3rd house of communications, pacts, promises, commitments, collaborations, and third-party associations and your network. Now, with the North Node going into your 9th house, this is a time where a lot of you Cancerian people are getting ready to get on the road. This is a time where getting out of your box, getting out of your bubble is always on theme. That's a big deal with the ninth house whenever any kind of celestial influence is going in there. But with the ninth house being activated by the North Node, you may find yourself getting ready to do some very important traveling or moving, either in a literal or figurative sense during this period. And you may find that some things in your life that could be bigger, that could grow faster, or that could mature or even complete themselves faster will be getting the resources, the power, and the support to do so. With the North Node in the ninth house, a lot of you could also be delving a lot more deeply into spirituality or into your culture, or maybe even getting a chance to elevate yourself in terms of maybe something that you would like to see take off or gain awareness. This is also a beautiful time for relationships and even work to benefit from becoming a lot more experimental, a lot more outgoing, and a lot more let's just say, again, out of the box in the way that they perform, getting out of familiar territory and branching into brand new ones, a big breath of fresh air, and also the removal of a lot of ruts that maybe we did or didn't know we had fallen into. It's time for a big a breakout period for a lot of you Cancerian people across the board. And you may find that you are being encouraged and incentivized in all kinds of personal, financial, and material ways every time it comes up. The South Node being in your third house is asking you to moderate and keep an eye on how much you let commitments, contracts, and agreements speak for your availability, speak for your time, speak for what you can and cannot do. During this period, it may be tempting to focus on commitments for their own sake, or to create and latch on to or help co-create as many commitments as possible, contracts as possible. Not all contracts and commitments are bad, of course, but we don't need to be kind of locking everything down and signing everything in blood, everything that comes up. You also need to keep an eye on where you might need to expand your horizons as far as your contacts and your network is concerned. If you are used to going to the same people or collaborating with the same people or running the same projects or running the same initiatives, really get yourself out there, because you might be finding some things are just getting a bit stale or are not able to go beyond the limits that they have. And whether this has to do with people, or this has to do with groups, or this has to do with any kind of shared effort, this is a big thing for you, okay? So focus on getting yourself out of your bubble and familiar territory. Focus on meeting new people and also getting yourself into spaces where you and yours are expanding your horizons, and you will find a lot of goodies on those horizons as well. All right, Leo, so what about you and this North and South Node move? Well, the North Node is moving back into Pisces, which is your 8th house of shared responsibilities, shared resources, bonuses, as well as investments, anything that you may share with other people, including business partners and romantic partners, as well as anything relating to intimacy, sexuality, and all of that good stuff. And when we have the North Node in the 8th house, this is a time where you are really getting pushed to thrive and prosper through what you share with other people, especially when it comes to things that involve you working more on, well, what could be going on their roads, in their lives, right? This can sometimes be a weird direction to get from the North Node, because you're going to be finding a lot of special opportunities that are going to come as bonuses or come as pleasant surprises, both in a material and a financial sense and in your personal life. But you've got to be ready to be taken on a few adventures as well, because the North Node in the 8th house is saying getting more involved in other people's journeys or these wild adventures and these side quests could be, of course, very thrilling and very rewarding for you and the relationships that you have. Platonic, business, romantic, it does not matter. This is also going to be a wonderful 18 months for anybody who's really looking to put themselves out there in terms of of risk-taking, anything where you know you've got to be pushing your comfort zone, and again, welcoming yourself to take on what's a part of maybe other people's stories and journeys, the events or the paths that they are on can also be yours. You contribute, they contribute, and we have something that is bigger than the sum of its parts, and also something that continues to give back. So make sure with the North Node in the 8th house that you're letting yourself do that. You be open to these connections and these exchanges, as well as even role changes and anything that could involve a little bit of role reversal, or you, again, getting a chance to join in on other stories and other journeys. Helping those to thrive and those to prosper will also help you to thrive and prosper. The South Node is in your 2nd house, which is the area of income, employment, and security. And it's important that we don't let maybe our own personal sense of security or our work obligations or anything around our own focus on material growth give us tunnel vision. This is not saying that you should all run out and, be irresponsible. No. But with the South Node in the 2nd house, what can often happen is that we are tempted to just grind on our own work, on our own path, or with our own self. And we might not actually measure up to what we could do if we got involved with others. The South Node in the 2nd house can also indicate an aversion to risk-taking, being overly careful, overly cautious, overly cloistered, and that can cause you to miss out if you're not careful. Of course, I'm not saying with any of this that anybody should be taking senseless risks. Just know when it is possible to be senseless about security, because this can be a very rewarding period for a lot of you. How about my fellow Virgo people? What does it mean when we have the North Node going into Pisces and the South Node going into our sign? Well, the North Node is going into the Virgo 7th house of closest one-on-one connections. This is the area you've probably heard me refer to as the ruler of all of our closest commitments. So the boyfriend, girlfriend, the BFF, the business partner, the husband, wife, the roommate, all of the people we share our most involved and connected and engaged one-on-one connections with. With the North Node in the 7th house, it's an important time to note the value of teaming up, of partnership, and sharing, especially when it comes to getting more involved with joint ventures. Not just ones where we're kind of doing I work on your life and then you work on my life kind of thing. That's the North Node in the 8th house. That's what the Leo people are doing. But for the Virgo people, this is more about getting ready to actually engage in joining forces with people equally. What we also have with the North Node in the 7th house is the promise of a lot of great rewards for those that are willing to actually take important steps in stepping back a little bit from maybe life in a too solitary way and being more welcoming to sharing space. However you're sharing space, professionally, romantically, platonically, it does not matter. With the North Node in the 7th house, a lot of you may also find that you are getting a lot of important help and investments from people that are looking to join you with whatever you've got going on. Or maybe you could do very well as well by combining forces with other people. But you've got to allow that to also be possible, because the South Node in Virgo is indicating that it's going to be an 18-month period where we got to be ready to moderate the tendency towards solitude or being overly independent or overly withdrawn, maybe even overly guarded. And this is something I know a lot about because I've got the South Node in my 1st house in my natal chart. So my default is hide away, fortress up. But with the South Node in your 1st house, you may find that a lot of even your personal goals, your personal dreams, and your personal aspirations are actually going to benefit when you welcome other people to go on those journeys with you, bring people closer, or let yourself be brought closer and promise more success to those ambitions, even the ones that you have been working on all by your lonesome. This could be a time where we've got to be ready to change some personal habits, especially when it comes to thinking about what we can and can't share, what we do and don't share, because the North Node in the 7th house is a very important period for locking in the strongest relationships, the strongest partnerships, the strongest alliances, and elevating and evolving the right commitments across the board, while also, even, yes, getting rid of what is not. So that is your North Node, South Node in a nutshell. But just keep in mind, it's going to be very important to know how to work with others. So what about you, Libra? What is going on with this North Node, South Node move? The North Node is going into Pisces, your 6th house of work, your reputation, your schedule, your community standing, the teams that you operate on, as well as your lifestyle and how you organize your life. And with the North Node here, this is going to open up an 18-month period where you are getting a chance to assemble what could be considered the dream environment around yourself, especially around your work and your social life. With the North Node in the 6th house, this is a time where a lot of you could be going through some profound job changes or maybe role changes internally that are setting you up for really good success that is going to continue to pay off and pay out. This could also be a time where a lot of you may get a chance to get on top of some things that have been out of sorts around the areas of maybe how you organize your life, your reputation, or even your health to a certain extent. But with the North Node here, you've also got to be ready to become a bit more prominent. The North Node of the 6th house is a time where you may be becoming a much more influential character in community spaces and in workspaces, maybe even getting to try on for size opportunities to lead or maybe become even a little bit of a coordinator yourself. And this is also going to come with its own benefits and rewards. But you also want to make sure that you are getting more active and engaged where you have maybe been more withdrawn or secretive in the past, because the North Node in the 6th house is all about visibility, and it is all about you being, again, lifted up in terms of your income, your workforce participation, your community standing, and that will benefit all other areas of your life. The South Node is going to be in your 12th house of the past, private matters, secrets, hidden opportunities, and shortcuts. And when we have the South Node in the 12th house, it's really important to moderate how much we've come to depend on maybe networking in secretive, private ways, or maybe how much we've become a little bit too isolated, withdrawn, or obscured from the right kinds of public view, wherever that public view may occur. Sometimes the South Node in the 12th house can tempt us to hide, or to become a bit more mysterious, or to even obscure our own selves for whatever reason. But that's not the answer. With the South Node in the 12th house, it is the right time for you to give yourself the opportunity to maybe come out with a lot more ideas, make yourself more accessible to other people, and not rely on secret routes, hidden routes, and paths less traveled, and take more, paved roads for a little bit. This is also a time where you need to be paying attention to where you could be tempted to overprocess, overanalyze, or overfocus on your past, or where you may have in some ways enshrined the past, whether this is past experiences, past connections, or past stories. And pay attention to where enshrining them is not doing you any good, and clean your slate instead, because it's time for you to be lifted up in the world. So what about you, Scorpio? What is going on when it comes to the North Node and the South Node and their move? Well, the North Node is moving into your 5th house. This is the area that rules pleasure, love, romance, leisure activities, creative enterprises, personal business, as well as your relationships with your kids. This is the area that is all about fun and games, creative expression, and of course, fantasy fulfillment, which is a big theme of the North Node going into Pisces anyway. And for a lot of you, this next 18 months is kind of taking you on a bit of a pleasure adventure, of a pleasure cruise. This is going to be a time where you are pushed and incentivized to actually have more fun, especially in your personal life. Invest your time and your energy into your romantic life, into your romantic connections, your most important partnerships, and your kids. You may even find, funny enough, that other areas of your life, including, say, things like business, your personal standing, community standing, things around other matters that don't really feel like they have much to do with love and romance or parenthood, are actually going to be enhanced by them. You never know how dream opportunities can come to you. This is also a time where, for those of you who are thinking about maybe going into business for yourselves, or you have your own business, are also going to be thriving. This is a beautiful time to really start bringing life to projects and ambitions that have just sat in the realm of fantasy for you. A lot of you may also be learning some important lessons in love, whether it's you are in a relationship right now or you are looking for a new relationship. This is a time where new relationship stories are being pushed, but in ways that are all about you being able to have the relationship you want to have. This is a time where a lot of you could be getting engaged or even married over the course of this next 18 months. Or for a lot of you, this could even be a time where important relationships are going through some very powerful spiritual shifts that are going to bring you closer to your most important people, especially romantic partners and your kids. Now, the South Node is going to be in your 11th house of friendships, your support system, as well as community. And so what we want to keep in moderation here is the notion of quantity over quality. When we have the South Node in the 11th house, we might try to get ourselves lost in crowds, or there can be a tendency to maybe welcome too many superficial relationships or superficial connections, or to even get subsumed into groups, in communities, and to activities where the amount of people doesn't really add up to much, no matter how many there are. This is a time for getting deep with your personal connections, even the platonic ones. The South Node in the 11th house can sometimes also ask you to take a step back, where you may have found yourself getting absorbed or maybe swept up in the tide of any kind of social or group activities, no matter how big or small they are, because they might actually be kind of taking on a life of their own that might not necessarily always be your life. So over the course of this next few months, let yourself enjoy, again, the more sensual, the more romantic, the more fantastical side of things. Bond with your kids, bond with yourself, but also allow yourself to be set apart when it comes to your own creative expression, your own business, and try not to get too wrapped up in, trying to fit in with everybody else. As for you, Sagittarius, the North Node going into Pisces is activating your 4th house of home, family, living situation, and home economy. And when we have the North Node here, this is a time where you are getting a chance to transform your very home environment into being the perfect sanctuary and the perfect castle. This is a time where also you may notice that important investments that you make in your home, in residential matters, or even your space are really going to churn out more rewards than you could have expected. This is a beautiful period for a lot of you looking to maybe find a new home in the world, or find your place in the world as far as where you would like to live and set up shop for a while. Also, for those of you looking to make any kind of important moves or transformations, well, the North Node here is absolutely beneficial to you, and you are also getting pushed to transform the way that you look at family. Family relationships that are good are going to be raised up. The family relationships that might not necessarily be so great are going to be pushed into the background. And you're also going to find that this is a time where a lot of you are getting a chance to bring in closer and make part of the family that and those you consider chosen family, and maybe even plant new roots with partners or begin cohabitation journeys that are going to be taking on brand new shape. This is a time where a lot of you are going to notice that you are prospering through all things relating to the home and family, whatever those matters are. And so this is where you really want to make sure you spend some time centering a lot of your attention over the coming 18 months. The South Node is going into your 10th house of career, status, upward mobility, prominence, promotions, and raises. And with the South Node here, it's a warning about getting maybe tempted or trapped by getting too involved or maybe too ambitious during certain career chapter changes that are going to be happening here. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't be focusing on your career or that you shouldn't be focusing on practical affairs or money or prosperity. Absolutely, you should. But the South Node in the 10th house is saying this is not really where you want to be putting your sole focus. And you don't want to necessarily get tripped up by letting career aspects take over other parts of your world. This is a time where you're really getting pushed to focus more on your castle than your kingdom. And you will see that even good opportunities for more financial growth and prosperity are going to come if you take on that, let's just say, that way of thinking. It's going to be really good for you. And what about you, Capricorn? How does this North Node, South Node move affect you? Well, the North Node's going into your 3rd house of communications, pacts, promises, commitments, helpful third parties, as well as collaborations, your network. And over the course of this next 18 months, you are going to be getting pushed to allow yourself to be taken care of by people. A lot of the times the North Node in the 3rd house, we tend to see a lot more closer to home or closer to our social circle or closer to our home environment or home region, a lot of important boosts that are going to be lifting up all other areas of our chart at the same time. Be they health, be they love, be they money, be they home, be they public standing, whatever is your priority here. Creative enterprises, the whole 9 yards. But with the North Node in the 3rd house, you've got to be open to letting more people get involved and interfere in good ways on your behalf. Helpful third parties can indicate a very helpful network, maybe even allowing yourself to collaborate or to become a more active and engaged member of your local community, however far out that local community expands. But when you have the North Node here, this is a time where important contracts and commitments are very well taken care of, and you are actually going to be lifted up. Even if you're thinking with a small town mentality about this, the focus is, well, with the North Node in the 3rd house, focus on what is your town and what is going to help you become a more prominent Capricorn about town. The South Node is going to be in your 9th house of expansion, growth, and big moves, big travel opportunities, as well as long-distance connections and any official matters, government legal matters, or even big spiritual or academic concerns. And when we have the South Node in the 9th house, there is a bit of a caution against getting too out there when it comes to how you are choosing to spend your time and where you want to get involved. More of your blessings are going to be coming closer to home and not necessarily getting sucked in to things that are going on in the big wide world. It's not saying that you should abjure, travel or big moves or anything that you might want to do, but it's important to pay close attention to where we might be using too much of our time or our energy trying to go farther or expand beyond boundaries that we don't need to. The South Node in the 9th house can be an escapist placement, or maybe even getting overly involved or swept up in big discussions, big movements, big goings-ons to the detriment of our own story. And this can happen in public ways, and they can happen in personal ways. And this period is a time for you to be focusing on, again, your home region, and the people around you, because those are the ones that are going to take good care of you. As for you Aquarian people out there, the North Node is moving into your second house of income, employment, and security. And this is also an area that can factor into independent success. And with the North Node in your second house, over the course of the next 18 months, you're going to find that life is going to be quite pretty to you, especially when it comes to all things material and financial. However, it is really important that you pay close attention to that I word, independent success. This is going to be a time where you are going to be going through a very strong prosperity push, but you need to allow yourself to maybe do things more on your own. The North Node in your second house, it can be wonderful for setting yourself apart in order to take on some really important work opportunities, new roles, new jobs, or maybe even raises or ways to kind of lift yourself up in terms of your own income and your own financial and material security. However, because the South Node is going to be in your 8th house of shared resources, shared everything, as well as investments and risk-taking and bonuses and anything regarding what you could share or get yourself involved in as far as other people's journeys are concerned, it can be tempting to maybe get into a bandwagon kind of place, and you don't want to do that. Sometimes what can happen with the South Node in the 8th house is we can accidentally get more involved or even take on more of the qualities of another person's journey or another person's work or another person's path. And we don't want to do that because, well, it's going to pull us away from what is actually happening to us and our own independent success. This may be a time where you need to curtail any activities where you might be trying to share too much or get involved too much or blend too much or overlap too much with other people, whether this has to do with business or maybe even personal matters. Now, it's not to say that this is encouraging you to completely cut off, but this is absolutely saying be careful about kind of becoming a passenger in a situation where you need to actually be the driver, where you need to be the independent success, because that's where you're really going to be thriving over the course of this next, 18 months. And lastly, but also mostly, well, let's talk about you, Pisces. What does the North Node going into your 1st house mean, and the South Node going into your 7th house mean? So the North Node's going into your house of you, yourself, your path, your journey, your hopes, aspirations, dreams, goals, projects, and works that are all about you, that are at least centered in and about you. You are basically the main character of the next 18 months. And what we have with the North Node in your sign is an opportunity for you to basically get back to you, your true roads, your true path, and also have the ideals, the ambitions, the dreams, whether they be material, whether they be interpersonal, whether they be relational, whether they be whatever, that are in accordance with your deepest wishes and your ideal setups come forth into being. When we have the North Node in our sign, it's also about getting back on our true path, the life that you are here to live, and the life that actually maybe you've desired to live your whole life. And this can be a bit of it could be a bit of a trip, because this is also going to be, well, pushing you to explore these things, even the things that maybe you've not allowed yourself to fully prioritize or invest in, maybe because of, again, other obligations, because sometimes things come up with the family, things come up with money, things come up with partners, things come up with friends, things come up, we're all over the place. But now this is all about you learning to, well, have your life according to you and the true you at that. This is also a time where you may notice a great deal of new help being brought closer to you, whether this is helpful people, known and unknown, money, resources, investments in you, backing and support in you. That's really going to be, kind of changing the tone of how you walk your path. And whatever you are pushing forward with all of this in mind is sure to succeed. Now, the South Node in Virgo is in your 7th house of partnerships and closest one-on-one connections. You've probably heard me say before that this is the area that rules the boyfriend, girlfriend, the BFF, the business partner, the husband, wife, and the roommate, and all of our closest one-on-one connections. And over the course of this 18-month period, the temptation of the South Node is to live in accordance with what we think is maybe the ideal of the other, whether this is, maybe a partner or a friend or an ally or something like that. With the South Node in the 7th house, that's not necessarily the way it's supposed to go. And you may also have some catching up to do if that's how the way you've carried on. When we have the South Node in the 7th house, it can be tempting to kind of go behind the partner or go behind the best friend or follow behind the business ally or whatever is going on there and let them kind of set the pace. But the North Node is in your sign and you have all the backing and the support to take care of business. And so you want to make sure that you understand that this is not necessarily about abjuring partnerships or unions of any kind, but it is about redefining them and maybe rearranging a few here and there. But what ends up happening is that you get a chance to have life on your terms. So that is what I've got for all of the zodiac signs and the overview of the North Node in Pisces. I hope you all found this helpful, and I hope that if you do like it, you share it with people you feel it would be helpful to as well. If you ever want to get a personal reading with me, you can go on ahead to my website, integrativemysticism.com, and I will see you all again soon. Happy North Node in Pisces. It's going to be quite awesome.